Second day of the workshop of the book project that we have organized here in Bilbao. And first of all, sorry for the delay, right? It was quite difficult to work with a group of people under the heavy rain at some point in Bilbao. Some of them walking with their trolleys going back home today. So really sorry, but we are going to start this presentation. So you know that this is a research group, and actually we didn't have the opportunity to present what the project is about. So the official name of the project is Assessing Effective Tools to Enhance Cultural Participation. And this was not a proper research project, but this is a collaborative network which was funded by the Culture Program of the European Union. And this brings together different researchers from different universities in Europe, 4 countries, Belgium, Ireland, Italy, and Spain, and 5 different universities and research centers, together with some associated partners, which are cultural institutions. So we wanted to have a fruitful debate among researchers, academics, all of us economists, sorry for this, and then practitioners, people working for public and private cultural institutions, or regional or public agencies and municipalities. So this is going to be one of the sessions. You are very much welcome, but this is one of the work in progress sessions in which our researchers from our network are bringing here the work in progress. They present their research so we can discuss with them in one area, which is academics, right? So, like, this is the more scientific part of the presentation, but also bring in some reality that you know as practitioners or as people working in cultural institutions, right? So today we have 2 presentations. The first one will be by Karol Borowiecki, and this is a paper together with Juan Prieto-Rodriguez. Another of the aims of this collaborative action on the book project has been to enhance the collaboration among different researchers coming from different institutions. Karol, he's nowadays in the University of Southern Denmark, and he's working together with Juan Prieto-Rodriguez from the University of Oviedo. So he's going to present their joint work on video games. And then we will go on with a presentation by Fernanda Gutiérrez Navratil, and this is also joint work together with Juan Prieto-Rodriguez. They are both in the University of Oviedo, and myself, being here in the University of the Basque Country. And this will be a work on industrial organization and cinema industry, and this is going to be how we are going to do. Each of them, they will present in something like 20, 30 minutes at most, and then we will have questions for the first presentation. Then Fernanda will present her work, and we will open the discussion for hers. Right? So the objective is to get to 11 a.m. and have a coffee break. Today it will be a proper coffee break, and we will try to keep a lighter session than yesterday, which was really tough. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicky, and good morning, everybody. Indeed, the paper will be about video games, and video games are perhaps stereotypically thought as a violent and immature medium. What we are trying to do here with Juan Prieto-Rodriguez is to posit a cultural value of the good of the medium. So we have actually 2 aims of the paper and also of my presentation here. The first aim is, we want to argue why we think that video games belong to cultural economics, okay? Why video games belong to our field. And second, we want to determine the factors affecting video games playing. So we want to see who is playing, what type of characteristics the typical video games player has. Okay? Let me first give you one or two visual examples. So this is perhaps one of the more stereotypical game, okay? A first-person shooter, Call of Duty. At the same time, if you perhaps look, beyond the gun, you see beautifully rendered textures, a very gripping script, movie-like gripping script where the hero that you are playing is going through a range of adventures, a fascinating sound, including music, which also gives you a very perhaps cinematic experience. Okay. Speaking of this game, the economic value. Well, we might, as economists, we might care what's the economic value of this game. So this game, it was released in 2010, and in the first 5 days, it hit 650 million US dollars. This was an amount that was not brought by any other blockbuster movie in this time frame, by any other music song. So it kind of dominated in the economic perspective. In 15 days, it hit $1 billion. Okay, so a massive revenue of this game. Another game, perhaps a little bit more peaceful, Fable 3. So this is a game where you have an open world, okay? A beautiful fantasy world where you have some fantastic landscapes, and here you are not so much constrained by a script. So you are playing the hero and making decisions throughout the game, and whatever decision you make, this will impact how the game will move on, okay? So if you decide to kill somebody, maybe some other people will begin to fear you. If you decide to help somebody, you will become more a positive hero, okay? So you have very, very, very different paths that you can go through the game. Again, it perhaps unfolds, well, it shows only not the aesthetic, nice landscape here, but also that perhaps to some extent it allows a bit of creativity, perhaps, of the player. A bit more recently, well, GTA 5 released, maybe it was also in Spain, a big campaign, all the posters around, again, a movie-like a script where you are playing the stories of 3 main heroes that you can see on the picture. A little bit older, well, this is something I was playing, Another World. A fantastic game with a revolutionary script at that time. Okay, so it was the designer of this game. Actually, it was designed and written by just one person, by the French game designer Eric Chanel, and he he's regarded a bit as a hero, if you want, among the video game nerds. And then if you move again a little bit more backwards, perhaps the first game, Pong, 1972, maybe some of you remember this game. Well, I still remember it from my childhood. A very simple game where the aim is to play the ball behind the line of the enemy, and yet, according to some, even this simple game has some aesthetic value, has some a cultural value of the design, and is of some interest to some people interested in aesthetics, for example. One of those proponents of games like Another World or Pong to have some cultural merit is the curator of the Museum of Modern Art in New York. So actually last year, 2013, in the spring, there was launched a brand new permanent exhibition of 20-something games. Again, a very courageous step by the curator, where you have the games exhibited. You can even experience the cultural product, so you can play the game. You have the context of the game as well described in the background, and the forecast is to extend this permanent exhibition by another in another 2 or 3 tranches. So it's supposed to be growing and it's supposed to become an important part of the Museum of Modern Art exhibition. The nicest thing about this type of projects is, as you can see on the picture, I took it last summer in New York. You see who is now the museum audience. Yeah? It totally attracts the new audiences to the museum. Yeah? it attracts the youth, and the youth they are really spending a relative long time at each exhibition here. A bit more formally, so the cultural value of video games has been argued already by within the humanities. So it's not a very new idea. Murray, she argues that the new digital mediums, video games, they extend the potential for storytelling. Okay, so you can tell stories in a completely new way. Laurel, she creates a comparison to the performing arts. So with video games, you as a user, you are not only the audience anymore, you are not only viewing the show, the spectacle, but you are affecting the spectacle, okay? So you are actively creating what you are going to experience, what you are going to see. Then video games is also much about visual aesthetics, often very beautiful landscapes, textures, costumes, or a couture of the characters. So it all touches, I would say, quite closely on contemporary art. If you look at the labor markets related to video games, the demand for game artists is rising a lot. So a game artist is a person, or well, it's a team of people who are designing the graphical elements. So game artists are probably now much more important than the game developers, and those who simply write the codes of the program. So video games, by affecting a range of senses, not only the visual, auditory, the kinesthetic, where you experience sometimes even physically the game with the newest consoles, are perhaps indeed a very rich cultural genre. Now on the economic aspects, very briefly, as I already mentioned, Call of Duty, the success was really large, but also the overall market is with a growth from 10 billions in 2004 to more than sixfold to 65 billions by 2011, and a really impressive growth. And this despite the economic turbulences associated with this time period. Europe seems to be slightly ahead of USA in terms of gross revenue. And then if you look at recent policy changes, fiscal initiatives in the UK, recently also 2012, fiscal support has been introduced for the video game industry in the UK. So also the policymaker appears to realize perhaps the potential of the industry and the value of it. Moving over to the second part of the analysis, the quantitative estimation. So here we are trying to find out who is playing, and in particular how the characteristics of the gamer relate with his or her preference towards other cultural goods. Okay, so you want to see, if you want, in a rough way, whether video games are a complement or a substitute towards cultural goods. For this reason, we use a survey from 2010-2011 conducted in Spain. So we get a bit more than 14,000 individuals, and then we are estimating some relatively fancy econometric model. So we are estimating a zero-inflated ordered probit model. Okay, it sounds perhaps quite technical at this morning hour. This is a model which solves two things. Okay, so first, and this is quite new what we are doing. We are applying the appropriate model for an ordinal dependent variable. Our dependent variable is ordinal, which means let me give you how it is represented. It tells you how it gives you information whether the individual was playing once daily, at least once a week, at least once a month, at least once a quarter, at least once a year, or never, or almost never. So these responses that the individual gives, they can be ordered, but you cannot really see what's the distance between each two responses. Okay, you cannot say that a person who plays at least once daily plays 3 times more than a person who plays at least once per week. So it's important to use here the right model, and this is what we are trying to do. The second challenge of the data, and this is a very common challenge in data on cultural participation, is that the data is zero-inflated. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that we have a lot of people who report that they haven't played at all in the last year. Okay, so a lot of zeros in our observation. But these zeros are due to 2 reasons. Okay, the one reason is people, indeed, they don't care at all about video games. They never play. Okay, their demand is 0. But these zeros also could be people who haven't played in the time frame. Actually, they have some positive demand. They are interested in the games, but they simply didn't play because of maybe some time constraints. Okay, so I would be the second type of zero. I like to play. I'm interested in games, but in the last 15 years or so, I didn't really have the time to play. And then we have the zero-inflated ordered probit model. So this is actually something now, since Vicky is sitting next to us, this is something that Vicky has, if you want to introduce, or at least she has done it first in cultural economics, and now is pretty much standard in our literature. So what variables do we include in our model? Well, we want to regress the frequency of a person playing on a range of, if you want, control variables or other potential drivers of game playing frequency, such as human capital. So we want to, see whether more educated, less educated people play more or less. Physical capital. So with regard to video games, you need some physical capital. You need a console, a computer, and so on. This is something that we are particularly interested in, alternative cultural goods. Okay, so the Spanish survey, it provides you a range of indicators on the involvement of a person in other cultural activities, such as literary writing, interest in arts or involvement in the arts, and so on. I will show you the variables in a minute. Then we have information on occupational status, household size and structure, demographic factors, and some geographical factors. Okay. So this is how the model looks like. Okay, so this is what well, we are as economists usually estimating a lot of small numbers and a range of variables. We have in the right column we have the selection equation. So here we are estimating the probability of playing. Okay. So here we control for the zeros, for the zero-inflated feature of the data, and then the left side. So here, for those who are playing, for those who exhibit a positive probability of playing, we estimate the frequency, or at least we estimate the correlates of frequency with a range of our variables. When it comes to let me interpret the results here. So age is negatively related with both the probability of playing and the frequency of playing. Okay, it is negatively related at a diminishing rate. What it means is that younger people are more likely to play, they are playing more often, and the association is not linear. Perhaps it's a convex relationship. Female, now this is quite interesting. The female are more likely to play, but if they are playing less often. Okay, so this is often posited in cultural economics that there are clear differences between genders. Okay, male and female are exhibiting significantly different patterns. Now, why is this so? One of the reasons is socializing. So a male might be socializing through a different or in different ways than the female. Maybe women prefer to go to the theater more often, while male are more keen into playing video games. The educational variables are also negatively related with the frequency, meaning that those who have a higher education, those who are more educated, they are playing relatively less compared to those who are less educated. Now, I didn't mention for the selection to select to deal with the zero-inflated feature of the data. We are using time constraints and some household variables as instrument to get those out who are exhibiting a positive probability of playing, so that we can estimate their frequency of playing. Here we have the physical capital of the respondent positively related with both probability and frequency of playing. Obviously, you need some physical capital to play the games. The first other cultural alternative that is visible here is the time spent on TV watching. This is positive related with the frequency, so people playing more, they also watch more TV. This is perhaps something what we would have expected. What is not so perhaps straightforward is hours of music listening during the working days. So this is positively related. This is a nice result here, writing. So people involved in, or people who are more frequently, people who are writing more creatively are more frequently playing video games. Okay. So a nice positive relation here with if you want, a measure of literary involvement or involvement in writing of a person. There is also a positive relationship with involvement in traditional visual arts. And then the probability of playing is positively related with photo and video activities. So some people who are interested in taking photographs or making videos. Here's the last results. We have the geographic components or the geographic controls. So frequency is positively related with the fact of being in a larger agglomeration. So this is a very typical result for cultural participation. Those living in larger cities, they are more likely to consume culture, in this case, play more video games. So in line with our hypothesis or with the argument that we have tried to make, there is some type of complementary relationship between several cultural goods and artistic practices and video games. So we found a couple of positive, statistically significant associations. We didn't find any, statistically significant negative associations. Well, the results appear to be in line with our argument from the beginning. similar as with other more traditional art forms, video games playing appears to be rather an urban phenomenon. It's related positively with ownership, and it appears to decrease with greater time restrictions of a person. There are also some interesting differences towards other traditional art forms. So video games appears to be particularly appealing to younger cohorts. The young are playing more. Now this is an interesting feature. I think nowadays, we do not know why this is so, okay? It could be on one hand side that it is indeed appealing to the young because it's experiencing something new, for example, driving a car, or this could be also driven to the cohort effects. So the young, they are more keen on technology, they grew up with digital mediums, and as such, they are more playing nowadays, and in the future, you know, next generation, the youth from nowadays, they will perhaps be also more likely to play than the corresponding cohort nowadays. Those with more education play less often, so this is another difference to the traditional cultural forms, and male exhibit a higher frequency of playing. So let me conclude. So video games economics, if you want, this is a potentially a very promising research area, a relatively new and an interesting research area. The industry is growing very fast. Also, the possibilities, hardware, it is as strong, as powerful as never before, which allows for a lot of new game products, very innovative game products. So also it creates room for creativity in the video game production processes. There are a lot of possibilities for further research in this area. So we give one or two suggestions for future research. One would be studying the determinants of success of a video game. So something which is very widely researched in when it comes to movies, for example. For the case of video games, we don't really know what are the determinants of success. Okay, what makes a video game successful? How important is the budget, the advertising, the designers, the reviews, hours, ratings, and so on, or perhaps content. Also, another interesting feature would be, well, games are very heterogeneous. So in this study, we are treating all games as one. Games are very heterogeneous. You have first-person shooters, or perhaps some sports games, which are testing your reflexes. Perhaps they contribute to the development of your some motoric skills. On the other hand side, you have maybe some strategy games where you need to think, which are perhaps intellectually stimulating more. Both types of games might be demanded and played by not only different users, but might also result in other outcomes. Maybe people are taking some skills out of the games that are perhaps later valued by the labor markets. So this is something which could be analyzed. And then I like always the geographic aspect. So we don't know much about the location of the video games and how it affects the production processes and consumption. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to your comments or questions.
So, thank you very much, Karol, and now we have time to open for questions and suggestions. And yeah.
Thank you for a very, very nice presentation. And I was wondering, there is a fundamental difference, of course, between video games and movies, and I don't know whether your model captures that. The fact that, first of all, you have kind of an addicted behavior, so you can repeat your consumption many times using the same video game. So in terms of the industry, the fact that you play a lot doesn't mean that you spend a lot, although you may pay a lot at the beginning to buy the video game, but then you repeat the consumption that you don't usually repeat. Another thing is, it's interesting, maybe if you want to investigate further, I don't know, probably the fact that the industry is booming against probably the revenue of the movie industry, is it that related to the fact that it's more difficult to copy a video game in good condition? It costs more anyway, because I think also the fact that you cannot have a streaming video game, or you can download a fake video game, whatever you can do with the movies. So that also increases the revenue so much, while the rest of the movie industry is actually suffering.
Yes, thank you for the questions, Isidoro. These are good points. Games nowadays, especially, are often. I didn't talk much about this. But games are often played online, in online environments. This means that in order to join such an online community, and this appears now to GTA 5, Call of Duty, and so on, you need first of all to have your own original game, and then for every month you pay a subscription fee. And this, I think, is a relatively high amount. So this is part of the revenue, and indeed it cannot be downloaded in an illegal way. On the other hand side, offline games, I'm not sure. Like once you have played the game through, once you know the story of the character, you don't really want to play it again. Also, like say sports games. Once you played through the tournament, you won against the opponents. After a while, you perhaps want to change to a different game, to a newer game, and so on. So also there it seems to be perhaps some change, some turnover in the consumption, some new purchases of new games. So with copying, yeah, as with regard your second point, so the online game community or online gaming does not allow for illegal downloads. So this is one way why it's also lower, perhaps, in the case of movies.
Hello, good morning, and
Hi.
thank you. Well, I was talking to you last night because, as I said yesterday, I belong to the cluster of the audiovisual, but we are very close to the video game industry. Here in the Basque Country, but as well, I've been involved in quite many trade missions. The two last of them being Ireland, which video games are doing quite well recently, and even the latest one being Singapore, again, being a quite hot spot for video games in the world. And there are quite many reasons for the increasing of the people involved in playing or even producing video games, but two seem to be quite of the biggest reasons for the recent success. One of them being for quite many animation producers or script writers, nowadays, due to the TV crisis, it's less expensive to produce a video game. So there's been a movement from animation industry to video game. And second, sorry, and this is something I wanted to highlight yesterday during my presentation, is that the interactivity issue is really playing a determined role in favor of the higher consumption in video games, since more and more people want to interact with what is being watch or even play in their online, visual phenomenon. So I think it's really growing a bridge between the video games and animation sector, but not only, because even the feature films are also playing a very major role in the online screening of their feature films, at the same time stimulating it with video games that are related to the main plot of the feature film. So I will add to your presentation that also the plot matters in terms of the success of a video game. And I really believe that the sectors are becoming more and more transversal in their success measures and matters. That was all. Thank you.
Yes, I take it as a comment, not as a question. Yeah. But I agree with that. There are really some interesting features now of the video game industry. On one hand side, you have a bit of a return to small teams of game developers, especially with the apps. Yeah? Some of the apps are developed by 1, 2, 3 people, and then these apps are played by hundreds of thousands. On the other hand side, you have these rather massive productions as Call of Duty. This is developed by teams counted in 3-digit number of people. Hundreds of people are working on the production of such a game and then a marketing of this game. And also a number of games indeed are based on some films, right? This was your other comment. The examples I can think of, these are usually very bad games.
Animation studio, and the reason for becoming part of the video game industry in Ireland was, first of all, for them was much easier and cheaper to develop a first online video game than test it, see if the online audience like it, and if they like it, they decided to also produce an offline video game based on this online video game, and even maybe go further and make it transmedia, and then also produce an animation series based in this first online video game, and even gives you a good argument to discuss a better budget with the TV producer or acquisition manager. So, as I said, to me, the transmedia interactivity issue really matters in the development of all this. And what I really like from your presentation is that I usually only talk to the producers, to the scriptwriters, to the TV acquisition people, to the industry, the ones that make it, not really looking so much to the audience measurements. So I think we may have a good discussion together, and it's a good relationship, I believe, for further development in research projects. So thank you.
Thank you for the comment. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this very challenging presentation. I would have two small question of you findings and then one more specific question. First of all, when you say that games is more of the use of games is more urban phenomenon, I'm a little bit surprised because I would have imagined that people who don't live in big cities do not have the same access to other kind of entertainment, and that they can be induced to deliver more time to playing games. Secondly, when you say that male are more frequent user than female, I think it's partially due to the aggressiveness of most of these games. And don't you think that some other kind of games may be developed in the future that would enable to communicate with a large audience than the one that is prevailing at the moment, which is you shooting, you making sport, and so on, is very aggressive. And now my question, you mentioned that the curator of the MoMA in New York is very fan of game. What I'm thinking of is, do you know any experience in the world when a museum assume its own internal game to enable a kindly visit of a museum or an exhibition for young people. A game that will be played within the museum, and when the answer to the question will be located somewhere in the painting of the sculpture. Thank you.
Yeah, this is an interesting question that came at the end, Michel. I have been to such museums, right, where you have a screen with you can touch on the screen and have a brief questionnaire and a multiple choice question. Maybe if you type the right answer, you get a smiley or something even gets printed out, and then you collect your kind of mark that you answered this question right, and so you proceed through the whole museum and take such hours. Yeah. It's not really a game, no, but it's a bit of an interactive.
Exactly, and interactivity is very well developed. Yeah. The interest I've seen in the game is that if you make a game, you can program the way young people will visit the exhibition, the place where they have to go because they have to learn something about the piece which is there, and then you have a kind of, in French, jeu de piste through the museum when the reply to the enigmas are in the painting and so on, and you're going from one part to the other. The material is there because it's used for ad hoc and internal question. It just has to be adapted so that you may make an exceptional visit.
Yeah. The question is also whether will it really enhance the experience of the culture, or will it only increase maybe time of the visit, right? Like in theory, you could organize a run through a museum as well. You will have also some type of activity. People will stay relatively long in the museum, but they will not really perhaps contemplate the artwork so as they would otherwise. But I agree with that. It's a lot of things are changing, and there are nice possibilities to get people more involved in the time they spend in the museum.
Yeah, but I would like to interfere. There are plenty of examples of gamification in museums, and I don't know if we have today someone in the room from Bicontech. No, they weren't here yesterday, but the thing is that this is applied. This is in the Museum of San Telmo in San Sebastian. You have this, and this is like the entry gate to the whole exhibition. If it's an exhibition about the history of the city, and this is used in order to have a different experience, but that can be seen as the entry gate to the museum. Right, so probably this is gamification in museums. This is like in other cultural institutions, it could be that it is a bit more difficult. And probably in the round table, we'll talk about this with someone that comes from a local museum here in Bilbao. Welcome. So please, the last question, we would like to have the question by Hassan.
Thank you. It's just a quick comment, really, rather than a question. I thought it was a great presentation. One of the big barriers to doing research with the video games industry in the UK we've had is that the industrial classifications are particularly poorly served for games. We did a study where we were trying to work out there are two SIC codes within which games developers and publishers should sit, and we did a study of games companies which showed that more than 50% of them are not classified correctly in those industrial codes. So there's a big problem in using official data to do industry analysis of the games industry. We've got a project with UKI, which is the UK's main games trade body, which is trying to use online data sources, social gaming platforms, social networks, scraping websites. I mean, there's a big project that we've got underway to try and construct an independent database of the games industry. I'll be really interested to talk to you more about I was also wondering whether the UK Taking Part survey has also got questions on the games industry. I've just actually sent off an email to the DCMS to ask that, because it'd be really interesting to apply your methodology, I think, in other European countries.
Yes, certainly. Thanks for the comment. I don't know how the UK survey, what type of data it covers, but it would be certainly interesting to talk about this. Just comment on Michel's point? Really quickly. So on the violence and male, this is also a very valid point. I mean, like the whole the consumers are a bit dominated by male, and the producers also by male. So there is a lot of content, and it's a bit like a circle. But I think now there are some female communities, game artists or game developers, and they are trying to push also a bit forward the female aspects of games. So this is hopefully changing now. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Another suggestion now that we shift, Fernando, please, is that 2006, even if this is like somehow prehistoric, Poetics devoted a special issue to these digital divide questions. So there is like a gender digital divide, age, and there are also several studies that talk about cognitive abilities. So probably old people, they are not just reluctant, but they have not developed the cognitive abilities that are required to enter into this type of world. And another one, that the use of video games is very likely to become like a social status, and distinction is going to be also in this field. So status and occupation determining what you are playing. So at some point probably all of us will be playing video games like crazy, know it or not. So thank you very much. And now we are going to